Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session on Inspiring Educators. Today, we have a very inspirational school leader with us, educational leader with us, who has had experience from different parts of the world, and not just in teaching and leading a school, but also inspecting schools and running large scale projects on how education can really be improved for every single stakeholder of an educational institution. So I take this pleasure to invite Mrs. Lakshmi Kumar. She's the founder, director, and principal of
Thank you.
Orchid School Pune. And she is, I was talking to her before we hit the record button, and such diverse knowledge of education. I am already very impressed. I hope we all learn a lot in this podcast today. So, ma'am, welcome to the session. I hope we'll be able to create the maximum positive structure for our listeners today, and we'll be able to create something amazing for all of our listeners today. So, ma'am, to begin with,
Thank you. It's my privilege and my honor.
So to begin with, I would request you to share your journey with us. How did it all start? You always wanted to be into education, or did it happen one fine day? What's the story? How did the education leader Lakshmi Kumar really came into being?
Okay, it's the foundation study. I did my master's in social work from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, and specialized in medical and psychiatric social work because I wanted to work with mental health.
Okay.
But within the mental health space, I wanted to work with children and families. So my first assignment was to be part of a child guidance clinic. But all the children who came either were referred by the families or by the schools. I'm talking about 84. And every time I would want to work with the major stakeholders in a child's mental health, I felt that they were not in sync. There was a lot of blame. There was a lot of shirking of responsibilities. And I felt very frustrated that I don't have the access to the real, genuine concerns of significant adults of children. So I kicked my job and went to a school which was upcoming, and I asked for a job as a counselor. Now, 84, a normal school having a counselor was not the most known concept.
Right.
So the principal said that, well, I have a job, but of a librarian. So since it was a very small new school, I took up the job because I had been working earlier with resources and learning materials. So I joined as a librarian and used every opportunity to connect with children, and slowly started to connect with teachers and training teachers on classroom management and building school climate, and started working with parents on parenting and essentials of parenting and dialoguing with children, and also started to work with policy makers on how do we build a school climate so that we can minimize child neurosis. So that's how I began to kind of infuse into the educational landscape. And I knew that if I'm working with education, I must know the bread and butter of education. If I want to be authentic and give my guidance to my teachers, I must really know what I'm talking about. So then I started, my teacher education with Cambridge, and did my educational leadership with Cambridge on reflective practices as an educational leader. And so my forte is to build a school climate
Wow.
that's really about the most wonderful place we can create for children and all the adults around. So I began to work with policies, work with human resources, work with stakeholder interest and training, and also build programs, the four pillars, as I call it: people, policy, processes, and programs.
Right.
So people thought I'm an expert in education. So I was invited to build a school in 2004 with the Orchid School
Wow.
as an employee director. I'm not the owner director, and I'm also not part of the Orchid International chain of schools. This is a standalone school
Okay.
that probably has an experimental model of experiential learning.
Got it.
So that's here I am.
So this was the Orchid School started in 2004, you said. And
It's 17th year.
17 years, that's a lot of time. And and
Yeah,
you said that
yeah.
you're somebody who researches a lot and who builds a lot of things, and then you build programs. So I'm
Yeah,
sure these
and
17
I
years.
think the privilege of growing up with the school. I mean, I joined the school when they had just dug the ground, so I felt that it was a gifted opportunity to envision
Right.
a concept of a school, and the school is owned by a bunch of bureaucrats who kind of said that we don't know anything about schools, so it's all yours. So
Wow.
I said, okay, you put the money, I put my brain, and let's not cross, the
The
domain.
thoughts.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good. So it's basically it's a baby that you brought up who's 17 years old now, and
Well, with so many significant adults, that school, like a child, requires a community to evolve. So
absolutely.
I have a community of educators, passionate members, and above all, parents who trusted us, to build a brand. I think that's the most significant uh, element that, when
Right.
you're nobody and there are, especially parents are willing to risk their child with you. I think that's the biggest gift that you can ask for.
I'm sure. And I'm sure you must have met so many teachers, interviewed so many teachers, trained so many
Oh, yes.
teachers, hundreds and thousands of
Yes.
teachers over
Because
this
this
last
is my
10 years.
third school.
Okay.
So this is my third school. So I'm embarrassed to say I have a 3 decades of educational experience because today it's not about numbers,
Yeah.
I think. It's about how diverse and how adaptive, how robust I have been in my new learning curve. So in that sense, after COVID, I say I'm just 2 year old.
So,
Yeah,
so
because none of us have
like,
run schools in COVID times. We have never run schools as lockdown, schools
yeah.
as lockdown. So in that sense, we are all novice to this
I
concept
think
of
it's
schools.
like a phoenix, right? Everybody's come out
Yeah,
of ashes again, and we are all
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
identify what exactly should we be going ahead. In my last conversation with one of the principals, again an amazing education leader, she mentioned, Rishabh, I feel our biggest challenge right now is how do we go back to normal, because we are so used to
Mhm.
the COVID way of doing things now that
Thank God we don't have to go back to normal.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
think the past is a nostalgia, as a romantic idea. I'm
right.
glad that there is a curtain drawn on a lot of practices that were so outdated and our refusal to adapt. So we've got a good kick in our butt.
Yeah, and it's many times our devices say, okay, you still want to use this software, here's a hard update. If till the time you don't update, you can't use it. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
education
yeah,
systems were updated in COVID. Okay, here's a hard update. If you don't update, you can't survive. And okay, let's
yeah,
update
yeah,
you. So
yeah.
got it. So so you must have worked with so many teachers and everything. So one amazing one question that always amazes me, and I always ask a lot of education leaders, is how do you define a successful teacher, right? What is your definition of a successful teacher? If you had to in a few words, in a few sentences, if you had to define that, somebody could just reflect on those words and say, okay, where do I stand in comparison to these words, or in if they have to weigh themselves. So what would be your definition?
Yeah. Well, I can give 3 words: CCD, not a cafe coffee day. Okay. Someone who is able to connect.
Right.
That's the first C. Someone who is willing to be corrected. The next one. Someone who has clarity of direction.
Wow.
Connect, correct, and direct.
Right.
connection, direction, and correction.
Beautiful.
Because without connection, I don't think you bring any engagement.
Right.
That if you do not have a connection relationship with your students, you however gifted you are in your content, you cannot engage.
Right.
And correction is that I'm willing to be corrected, I'm willing to be updated, I'm willing to be told that I'm outdated, that I need to transition, that I'm willing to be, and I'm ready for corrections.
Mm-hmm.
Correction, I don't mean it in a very typical assessment way of right and wrong,
Right.
but someone that is ready for that. Yeah, I need to correct myself in order to make better connections.
Right.
And the third one is that I have a direction, that I have a direction and a drive to make a impact, make a change in our students so that we build a better society. Our goals have to be loftier and bigger than the board exams and the meager satisfaction of high scores. Like just yesterday, I had a day before, when we were talking about a concert, and we often write the concept note. I asked the teachers, what's the purpose of education? You know, that clarity of direction needs to be there. The purpose of education is to build a compassionate society,
Right.
to build an informed civic citizenry, to build a global citizen, that we can build peace and harmony. And then the concerts and the textbooks and the exams and the field trips are all means to that lofty ideal.
Absolutely. So if the direction is set, then it's
Yeah,
easier to tread on
yeah.
that path and then achieve whatever you wish to achieve. Beautiful, beautiful. I think a lot of our listeners and a lot of current and prospective teachers are going to be learning that, and they're going to be working on that for sure. So, ma'am, when I talk about prospective teachers, there's this amazing, again, I don't know why I'm using the word amazing again and again today. It's just hit me today. But there is this question that comes to my mind, that how do we motivate the next generations to come and join the teaching profession? And somewhere, all of us want the best teachers for our students, but it's very rare that somebody wants their kids to become a teacher. And it's a question that has been, that has been keeping us up at night at Surasa, considering United Nations numbers of requirement of over 70 million new teachers required around the world in the next 5 to 8 years to take care of the education systems and everything like that. And instead of more and more people joining as teachers, there are teachers who are right now teaching, leaving the profession and going. So if you could share a message for these next generations, what really does it mean to become a teacher? Because I think people don't understand what a teacher really does. Layman thinks that teaching is so easy, anybody can do it. People who have seen teachers and who are very close to them, they realize, no, it's very difficult, it's not easy to do it. But there is no clear direction, again, as you mentioned, direction, to what really does it mean to become a teacher, and can the youth be attracted towards it? So if you could share a message around that.
I think, no profession is easy. Okay. Especially when you are a service provider, whether it's a healthcare professional or educational services, it's not easy because you're working with dynamic minds, dynamic human beings. Okay, so we must not choose it because it fits our life cycle of a vacation and my child, because then it's a very minimal agenda. It will fulfill that objective. So that's the first thing that I want to clarify, that you know I'm not saying come with the right approach, okay, or the right reasons. I don't care for whatever reasons you have enrolled yourself to be a teacher. It could be it suits your marriage profile, it suits your family profile, it suits your children's life cycle, or you have a good vacation, which is all myth, let me tell you. or that, it's not a jig work. I don't care what reason you choose to become a teacher. But once you become a teacher, once you make a choice, can we make an ethical commitment to this professional ethos? That's the first thing. And can I stretch myself to do the best job that I can? That's the second one. I think the third and the most important one is, which I think is to do with our professional attribute, that do I believe that I make a difference? This value, or this self-confidence, this self-image, the self-respect, only we can infuse in ourselves. We don't need to wait for external locus of motivation, idea of volition from outside. This is something that very sadly we lack as a profession. A lot of time we will very apologetically say, well, I'm just a teacher.
Right.
Or a lot of our behaviors that we believe it's not a profession. We rarely see teachers investing in themselves unless somebody mandates it. I've seen teachers who have done B.Ed 20 years ago and done some basic mandate training, and they feel they can sail along. Versus a doctor, if the doctor has done 20 years ago his graduation or her graduation, but doesn't update and upgrade, is out of practice.
Right.
And you would not go to such a doctor.
Right.
So I think I want to put this claiming the responsibility of being a professional and updating myself and connecting with the generation that I teach with, and that I'm on top of my professional demands. That lies with us.
Absolutely.
It's not an employer's responsibility.
Absolutely. And I think
an employer can give you a classroom, employer can give you a darbar, but whether you want to be a king or a queen is entirely your choice.
Absolutely.
And you don't become a king or a queen by your power structures and power wielding, only by being that professionally competent and personally humble is when you really can make a difference. So this is what I tell my teachers. I don't care for what reason you become a teacher. Now that you have registered yourself to become a teacher, are you ready?
Right. I'm sure, first of all, 100% agree with what you said. It cannot be, the accountability cannot be outside yourself, right? If you're a teacher, your accountability of your performance is inside you. And somehow we are stuck into this vicious cycle. And again, many people to blame, many systems to blame, but we can't pinpoint on anyone. But
and also, the teacher salaries are not wow as IT guys. Okay, if you want salary, then go there. You can't be in the profession and be part of the system and every day complain about nobody respects you. It's not true. People respect you if you respect yourself.
Right.
In fact, if you respect yourself, you really don't bother about who else respects you.
Yeah. This vicious cycle, where a teacher does the pre-service education, gets the degree, but doesn't really know what really happens in the classroom. Then they interview with the school and the school says, well, you have the degree, but you don't know much. We'll have to literally train you from the scratch. So we'll have to invest in your training. Why don't you start at this low salary? And then they start.
This is not unique to only teaching profession. Look at all the engineering. Today even a doctor needs a pre-service training, in-service training, on-the-job training, because nobody is employable right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But where exactly you said that by doctors, reach that threshold energy and move on to grow, while many times teachers
most professions, you will never go to a lawyer who, had his bar exam in 1942.
Right.
You will never give your case to that guy because he's not updated, or you will never invite a civil engineer to construct your home based on a knowledge that is totally out of sync with the the climate and the context in which you're building, or the material that you're building. And you would never go to a fashion designer who made blouses for maybe your grandma, unless of course it's come back as a new design. And you would never go to a jeweler, you will never go to a florist. Just think about any profession. You wouldn't go to someone who hasn't really understood the pulse of the current realities. So that's principle should apply to teachers, that we cannot sail on. I remember my guru, Jose Paul, maybe you've heard his name. He always used to say, when teachers say that I have 30 years of experience, he'll say, yeah, 30 years of the first year notes that you have prepared.
Yeah.
We have just repeated it. So it's I think it's that attitude of that कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है.
Right.
The difference should be making for you that how boring it is to deliver the same type of lessons. Isn't it boring for you? And I often say that to teachers, every time you do the same thing, your template must have 30% change.
Right.
Because that's when it is exciting for you, right?
I'm like, as you said, we don't really go to those doctors and lawyers and architects. But do you think that the schools have stopped going to those teachers? Do you think that schools are now rejecting all of them and only looking at only these?
The new age schools have started doing that, not rejecting, but engaging teachers to evolve. See, we don't have a great ocean to fish from. Okay. In fact, today, just now, I completed a final interview of a candidate, and I told my HR and my leaders that, let's see how we can upskill her, how we can mentor her,
right,
how we can support her, because it's not easy to walk into a school system that is established for 17 years and you have an organization culture and you have, already, groups and subgroups. And then you have parents who have these big eyes in their, living room, classroom. And you have children who have already kind of assessed you and put you in brackets. And then you are bloody nervous.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think if we can get that, empathy in action and say that this is exactly how I was in my first year. I think if as leaders never forget how you have been as a first year candidate and you made all the mistakes that are against the organization culture and grant them and guide them. Like yesterday, one teacher said, that, well, I'm still, she's just joined us as a future readiness facilitator 1 month. So I asked her, how is it? She said, yeah, I'm kind of figuring out. And she said, I think I really need a month to just figure out all the acronyms, like what is SPTC, I think she showed us a mirror.
Yeah.
We all talk SPTC as if everybody in the world knew.
Right.
It is Student Parent Teacher Conference.
Oh.
Why would I expect a new candidate to know what is SPTC?
Yeah.
But sometimes very unconsciously we say, hey, you know what, next week there is SPTC, I hope you're all ready for it. Right? So I think empathic leaders would engage with the average teachers and make them extraordinary.
Right. So basically then it comes between, do I look for the right person or do I find an average person and make him the right person?
Well, I come from an HR background.
Okay.
I say hire the attitude and skill the person.
Right.
For me, very, very important is the heart in the right place.
Right.
We can skill, damn the content.
Content can be...
Because, that's all. So I think for us, is this person having the attitude? And that is the litmus test. And that kind of comes out in the first 3 months.
Right.
Then if the person is making some procedural errors or process slips, that can be fixed.
Right.
And that, I can teach you how to write a lesson plan I can tell you how to look for, the real life connect for the concept. And I can tell you how to set a paper, and how I can train you on how to do assessments with the answer key. And I can tell you how to. But do you have it in you to make the child valued?
Right.
Do you have it in you that you don't have prejudices against the parents?
Right.
Are you willing to revisit your biases?
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's
these
really
are things that, are for me very crucial.
completely understand. So, first of all, great learning from you about all of the basic principles that you are following as an education leader. But I'm sure every leader, every successful person has had his mentors and people whom he looks up to and who he wants to thank whenever given a possibility and opportunity. So if you had to thank some of the mentors, who would they be, first of all, so that when we publish this, people know about them, that, okay, these are the people, go to people for education, and leaders like you have learned from them and you look up to them. And if you want to, even thank them or give them a message this Women's Day, we would love to, take this clip from here and then send it to them, that Mrs. Lakshmi Kumar sends you her regards on this Women's Day, because she's become a woman leader and leader in education, and this Women's Day she wants to thank you. So any 2, 3, 5 people, whomsoever you want to,
Yeah.
you can just pick up and
Well, I think the first one would be Jose Paul. He's a living legend. He lives in Delhi. I met him when I was 24.
Wow.
And I remember the formative years of what it would be to be an educator in that sense. And I remember him reading out this poem of the master's touch, the violin, and I remember that, and I believe that a dirty old violin which was completely out of sync, is ready for an auction and nobody buys it, and people just pay $1, $2, and suddenly somebody comes and cleans the violin and tunes it and starts playing the music, and then the auctioneer asks what should be the cost. People will bid for, and it's $1,000. And what made the change? It's the touch of the master. And I carry that with me. What he gave me a message. It's not the violin's fault. It's the people who perceive the potential of the violin, and because we judge the violin's look from its music. That's one guy that I hold as my guru.
Right.
Couple of them, of course. Second would be my mom. She was an embodiment of strength and a leadership, because she was a single woman, and she was, in fact, one of the reasons why I entered the mental health space. She had bipolar, and yet I think she did phenomenal job of driving this one message that education is the only way you can have upward mobility to us. Focused, and she was a disciplinarian to the extent that sometimes we felt rebel against. The third one, he's no more, is a philosopher that I worked with as an international assistant for him for very brief 4 years. He's a very well-known philosopher, Marxist scholar, and I think Oxford has a chair on him, Dr. Roy Bhaskar. And I worked with him for 4 years, traveling his India publication time. It was completely an off-the-cuff job that I took it. And every night when he said goodbye to me, he would say, gently close the door on the past. That was his message. Every night when we traveled together, close the door gently on the past. And I thought that was a tremendous message about not carrying the baggage of the past.
Right.
I think it cleanses you, it lightens you. And he also gave me a very, very significant insight, because I was doing a lot of transcription of his lectures and interviews as publications. And, one day I saw him actually typing on the computer. So I said, "Oh my God, Roy, you knew actually to type. Then why were you not typing your books directly?" I remember him saying this, that, "Lakshmi, I should do things only what I can do, what I need to do. If someone can do this for me, I must let them do it."
Yeah,
I thought he just gave me an insight into the art of delegation,
absolutely.
do things only that, no one else can do. If someone else can do it, train them and delegate and trust them to do it.
Absolutely.
So that's my third guru, or, I think it was almost like life gave me those 4 years of very, 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 very important insights. And this guy is such a well-known scholar, but he would still look at me during every lecture to ask me, "Did it go well, Lakshmi?" And I had to give him some visual signals,
Right.
or I would say, "Stop it, now it's time, it's boring," or, things like that. And I mean, he was lecturing in IITs and the IIMs, and I was traveling with him. And I thought life had a plan for me of the learning.
Wow.
And I think the fourth one, it sounds a bit cliche, is my students. I have worked a lot with international students. I worked with Sweden for the longest time, 25 years of
Wow.
coaching them for intercultural competence. And I have felt so inspired that a 21, 22-year-old would leave all the comforts of their own hometown and come to India and live for 3.5 months in India in the very minimalistic environment, and connect with people of different cultures, and be shocked and be prodded and thrown out of comfort zone and not given a familiar food, and really a very diluted forms of luxuries or the basics, and went back growing tall. Literally, I'm not uh,
I understand, ma'am.
saying it as this. And I felt so inspired by their drive for learning. And I think they are my greatest gurus, so to say.
Beautiful.
Well, the list can go on and on and on. And another one was the lady who gave me the opportunity to be a librarian, but saw my potential as a leader and as an educator. Unfortunately, I lost her to cancer, but yeah, I mean, she believed in me, she trusted in me, she saw that that there is a point in building a school climate. So together we were a force. We journeyed for 18 years, not one day, 2 days. So I think life has given me so many such people, events as teachers. Situations have taught us so many things.
Right.
So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your time. I really enjoyed the discussion a lot. Many,
Thank
many
you.
pearls of
Thank you.
wisdom in this conversation. I'm going to work with the team and specifically pinpoint towards some of the things that they should pick up and they should use them,
Thank you.
specifically to
Thank you.
motivate the
Yeah.
next generation of teachers.
I mean, when I speak about my mother, if anyone had to have taught me women empowerment, I think she's my first role model. Yeah. And I think I learned all my gender lessons, lessons of dynamics of patriarchy, the oppression, and the class and the caste clashes. Everything life teaches you. I think we need to pick up the right signals. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be an inspiration to hundreds and thousands of women and men, that they'll be able to look at the right direction.
Yeah, I believe that feminism is not about women. Feminism is about human beings.
Balance. It's about the balance, right?
Yeah, and it's about human race.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am.